Ladies and gentlemen, it's Spoilerin time. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood. And on today's show, we are going to spoil The Shield, episode 7 of season 7. Narcos, the Netflix original series, episodes 1 through 4. Episodes 1 and 2 of Utopia, which someone was nice enough to send us on Blu-ray. And the 8th episode of season 2 of Rick and Morty. Can you believe we've had 8 episodes already?
Yeah, man, it's been going fast. To be honest, I keep being convinced that we're about to run out of Rick and Morty's, and they keep coming out. I'm so excited.
I am excited too. I think I just got The Shield wrong, though.
Episode 6
episode
of season
6.
7.
I just realized.
Yeah.
So, don't freak out. Don't freak out, folks. Episode 6 of The Shield. You're not behind. So we actually literally just finished watching Rick and Morty. When I say literally, I mean we wrote a novel about it.
Wait, we wrote a novel?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like, what do you mean?
Literally.
Oh, literally.
Just finished watching Rick and Morty.
No, I think you mean the figurative use of literally, in which you...
No, we actually just finished watching Rick and Morty.
Yes, no, that is true.
We didn't write a novel about it.
No, yeah, that's called a lie.
This was a rehash of watching interdimensional television.
Right.
But good bits, I thought.
I got to be honest. Rick and Morty is a funny show insofar as oftentimes I will watch it, and as I'm watching it, I'll think it's not as good as other episodes I've seen 3 or 4 times and have entered my lexicon or whatever. But in that moment, I definitely felt like I did like the fact that they wore on their sleeve that like, yeah, no, sequel episode. You like that episode from last season? We're doing that again, which is again that very meta Rick and Morty thing. But I actually enjoyed the B plot, or I guess the A plot of Jerry Smith getting his penis removed way more than the improvisational made up bits from Justin Roiland. I don't want to say he did anything wrong or bad or whatever, but it's just I think that it felt fresher last year when we had never seen anything like that before.
That's where I was going with this. Was the interdimensional bits had some funny stuff, but it wasn't the crazy like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're doing this of the first time.
Yeah.
Because like you say, they wore it on their sleeve. They telegraphed, look, we're doing it again. Okay, just get used to it. So I was okay with that. I'm like, yeah, this is not going to blow me away. But really, there were some amusing bits.
Yeah.
It was like looking at the second album of a novelty act, the second Weird Al album, where you're like, okay, I know what he does now.
Right.
And so not every song is going to hit with me, but there were enough songs that hit. That's fine.
You know what would be fascinating...
the other plot, whether it was A or B, I can't even tell.
I think it was the A
with
plot.
Jerry, was a strong B plot, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If there had been, instead of interdimensional TV, an A plot, then the Jerry plot would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
As the sort of like, well, I guess it's the A plot since the other plot is just them watching TV.
Right.
I felt like this is definitely the weakest episode of the season.
Yeah.
Even though I agree with you that the Jerry plot was funny.
Again, I thought that last week, and then upon a second viewing, I decided I was wrong.
I have not thought that yet myself this season. Every week I've been like, damn, I don't know if that's better or not, but it's right there.
Yeah.
This is the first week this season where I've been like, nope, definitely like let off the accelerator a bit, which frankly, 8 episodes in,
I'll tell you what,
insane.
If somebody wants to conduct a scientific experiment, I say cut out all of the improvisational television bits from Rick's D Minutes last year and cut out all the improvisational bits from this. Mix them up in a double blind thing and have people rate them. And I would love to know objectively.
Like which one had the higher percentage.
Yeah, correct.
That'd be interesting. All right, let's move on to Utopia. Episodes 1 and 2 of season 1. And man, I really wish we had watched more of these because I super enjoyed this, as I know you did too. Brian, where is Jessica Hyde?
Dude, okay, first of all, again.
Where is Jessica Hyde?
For the record, Utopia, it has been
face.
forever since I've been punched right in the balls by a television show like Utopia. The opening scene,
Figuratively.
You weren't around that disc at all times. All right.
All right, fair enough.
No, the cinematography is gorgeous. We noticed, and I normally don't notice this kind of thing, but it was cool to figure out like, oh wait, they intentionally oversaturate all the colors on this.
And as soon as you said that, it clicked with me like it's comic book colors.
Yes, exactly. It's a graphic novel. It is emotion, like the opening scene. Okay, Narcos, which we're going to talk about. We're all like, watch the first episode and you'll be hooked. I'm going to say watch the first 5 minutes of Utopia, and that's all you need to see. And you're going to be so into it. I can't wait to watch it again.
The only thing I can say about episode 1 versus episode 2 is that episode 1 kept surprising me. Every time I thought I knew where they were going to go, like, oh, okay, it's this kind of story, they would yank a heart, they would kill the person. I was like, oh, it's going to be about this, all the way to the very end of the show when I'm definitely like, oh, where's Jessica Hyde is going to be the big mystery in season 1. And end of episode 1. Hi, I'm Jessica Hyde. I'm like, I can't predict anything.
Yes, no, it's great.
In a very good way.
Charlie Rozadko in the chat says,
oh, that's Charlie's who sent it to us.
Oh, wonderful. He points out, he says, search YouTube for the first 10 minutes of Utopia. Yes, absolutely. This is a I don't think we've ever done this before. This is a command. This is an all points bulletin. Pause this right now. Go to YouTube, search for the first 10 minutes of Utopia, and then come back and you will get it. Things I love about it. The cinematography. I love the character development. I love how real everybody felt, you know, the 4 main characters.
Oh, yeah. So I noticed, and I was thinking about this after we were talking about it, nothing is romanticized except the violence.
What do you mean by that?
So the sex scene, totally awkward and fumbling.
Dude, delightfully
the escape
awkward.
scenes are like, I can't
awkward.
Everything, nothing is romanticized except the violence from the bad guys, particularly, right? The bad guys get total romanticized.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no. You know, they
everything
seem
they
all
do is
the bad guys are all knowing, are all powerful, and they never make mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's only by dumb luck that people who get away get away. Now we're going to move into spoiler territory for season 2. So if you watch the initial stuff,
you mean episode 2?
Episode 2. The opening 10 minutes instantly made me absolutely terrified of that duo. You know, the lanky, tall, smoking, 80s hair guy and the dumpy.
And just a yob of a guy.
Yeah.
Just all I can do is say, where is Jessica Hyde?
Yes, but he's almost like a zombie in that he will always continue to walk forward. Right. He's like a Borg, basically, right? I got to admit, I was thrilled for the characters, bummed to see 80s smoking man get killed.
But I think that's what this show does, is says, you're going to expect to never meet Jessica Hyde, so we're going to give her to you in the first episode. You're going to expect that dapper smoking guy is a beloved violence man that will haunt you through the season. Guess what? We're going to kill him in episode 2.
It's astonishing. It breaks all the rules and yet tells so much truth about online interactions and chat rooms. And it's like, we've been there with somebody who says one thing and you find out that it's an 8-year-old kid or whatever.
Chat realm.
Yes,
boom.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you're in chat realm, you definitely got to watch this.
It's exquisite, and plus also
Noah Wilson.
Yes, exactly. Well, and
that's your real name.
The fact that they could go to quirky spaces and it doesn't feel cheesy was astonishing to me. And the fact that his dad is Milton Wilson, and they're like, really?
Yeah.
What is this?
What is with your family?
And I got it. There's a hypnotic quality to the oversaturated colors. There's also a hypnotic quality to the music. I like they keep playing music, and I keep not noticing it until then the credits come up. I'm like, I love this. I'm sorry I cursed. I cannot wait to continue to go forward. I hope a bunch of people come along with us for the ride. I will say that I'm trepidatious about the fact that I have heard that it ends on a cliffhanger and it's only 2 seasons long. But I take solace in the fact that, look, that just means I get to have a Firefly experience again.
Yeah.
You know?
Or you get to be that guy when Amazon or Hulu come along and say, guess what we're doing?
We're like, oh,
we can be really excited. Yeah. Shall we move along?
Yeah.
To Narcos episodes 1 through 4. And we mentioned this on Cordkillers. Each episode feels like an entire story.
Yes.
Like
a
I
mini
thought this was
documentary.
going to tell like the rise of Pablo Escobar. They cover that in like the first 15 minutes of episode 1.
Yeah.
And from there, it's like, then they slow down and they're like, no, they're going to tell the story of the fall of Pablo Escobar, essentially. Well, because it's by episode 4 that he has now been kicked out of Congress and they've assaulted his home. And again, at the end of episode 4, I'm like, that could be the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, he was kicked out of his home and he was haunted for years, and then he finally was killed on this date. Like, that could be the scroll. That would be, and here we are. It's only episode 4. We got 6 more episodes.
Yeah. So one of my favorite aspects about Narcos, and it's a testament to the set designers, to the casting directors, to the way they're shooting everything, is that they intersperse liberally actual footage from that time period.
Oh, in
of
episode
the
4, they use
Pablo
so
Escobar.
much of it.
And it's like it goes back and forth. And yeah, he looks slightly different on TV, but guess what? We all look slightly different on TV.
Right.
I totally buy that it's the same guy. And Pablo, the guy who plays Pablo, has this great kind of I don't want to say vacant stare, but as if he sort of is just like, well, I decided this is what I'm doing, so it's time to do it. In some ways, he almost reminds me of the doughy character from Utopia, where it's like he goes forward because that's what he does. He's Pablo Escobar.
I know how to deal with every situation.
Yes.
Because I have a template for how I deal with every situation.
Oh, and back to, you want to talk about something that engaged me from the get-go. That scene in episode 1 where they get pulled over by Border Patrol and they're like, no, these aren't the local cops. These are essentially the Colombian FBI. And he goes around, names them all by name, mentions their daughters, their sons, their wives, and then offers them gifts. They're like, seems like your son would really like that gift. And all of a sudden they realize that they've been checkmated and they're way outside their depth, and that they all fall into line. It is chilling and terrifying and so powerful.
You know, another thing that I really enjoy about it is you are set up to see, you know, the DEA is the good guys trying to stop the horrible Pablo Escobar. And you're set up to think of Pablo Escobar as a humanized bad guy. You know, like, he is very genteel. He loves his mother. Even when he's cheating on his wife.
Yeah.
He makes sure that the person he's cheating with doesn't disrespect his wife.
Yeah.
And even his wife is like, you need to stop disrespecting me with her. And he feels bad.
Yeah.
Okay, you're probably right. Like, it's just this weird, twisted version of an upright citizen. And he thinks of himself. And every villain is the hero of his own story. And yet, the DEA guys, I don't know if you notice it, are always doing things where you're like, no, that's 100% wrong.
Oh my God, you're right. You've got a womanizer who's cheating all over his wife, having sex with all of his informants. That they're all down. Oh my God, I didn't really put that together.
The scene that it clicked for me, and I started putting it all together, is when they get their funds cut off because the government's going to fight the communists, and they're like, well, these guys don't know who the real enemy is. I mean, this is a war. This is a drug war, and I'm like, whoa, hold on.
Yeah, no, that's an actual war.
Within Narcos convinced me you're right that the war on drugs is more important
than the war on
any
communism.
other war could be.
And yet I find myself also seeing things from Pablo Escobar's point of view where it's just like, man, who cares? Freaking gringos, yeah, give them their coke. Let's just be the country that makes the best coke, and let's put me as president, and we'll just be the coke country. And there's part of me is like, well, yeah, I guess a lot of people really like cocaine. It seems like honestly, a good way to do that.
If coke was not illegal and he didn't have to bribe anyone or hide it, he would be Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
He would be Ross Perot.
Absolutely.
He would be a brilliant, charismatic businessman who some people hate, but was very successful and above board. He decided to go into smuggling early on, which then led to drugs, which led to, no, he can't possibly be above board.
So many moments that I had to remind myself that this actually happened, and this is a factual account. Like when he creates the cartel called Death to Kidnappers and so on. That was phenomenal. What did you think about the fact that I was surprised somebody on Twitter said that by the end of the series you'll get annoyed that so much of it is in Spanish? To me, the more of it that's in Spanish, the better. I love it.
I never mind. First of all, I never mind movies with subtitles. I never mind television shows with subtitles. That is not a thing that bothers me, and it does bother some people. And so if you're the kind of person that gets bothered by that, yes, you're going to get tired of that. It's never been something that bothers me. I've also been trying to learn Spanish.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're doing Duolingo.
I don't know if it's imaginary, but I watched 3 episodes today, and by the third of those 3 episodes, I felt I was understanding more of the Spanish.
Well, that's what part of it is, that you have the context, and when it's a simple phrase, because you're playing this dance where you want to look the actors in the face and you want to feel what they're feeling, but then you practically have to, you
got to eyes down for a period of time.
But there are those times that you're captivated by the performance and you understand, like you hear a phrase and there were times I didn't even know what the phrase was, but I was too into the moment. I knew what they meant, and I didn't even bother to glance down at the title.
I do love that they roll in those real footage pieces rather than faking them. Because you get that beautiful moment, I don't know if you noticed it, where they're showing Pablo Escobar and it's real footage. And I suddenly realized that's the same outfit that he's in the credit sequence when he's on the motorcycle.
That's great.
And it just ties
that's
in a bunch
actual footage of Pablo Escobar. Man, it is, I got to tell you, let's play the game of ranking Netflix originals. I would say every bit as good.
It's getting hard to keep track of them now, isn't it?
Every bit as good. I would say it's better, full stop, than Orange is the New Black. If you like Orange is the New Black, I think this is a better crafted.
It's hard to compare.
I mean, they're different genres.
Because one is more lighthearted. Orange is the New Black is definitely more lighthearted. But Narcos is a more substantive show.
Possibly as good as the first season of House of Cards.
I think it's better.
Oh, really?
Again, because House of Cards even is a dramatic depiction of a fake person.
Right.
Because this is just as dramatic as House of Cards, but has that extra bonus of real events.
Yes.
I put it ahead.
There was a moment that, and I alluded to this in the show, but there was a moment that I unironically said out loud to you, if I'm going to try to recreate it. I was like, I've seen documentaries about how cocaine is produced, but it was really great to see them fictionalize that and make it real to me. And I realized that I used the phrase, they fictionalized it, and now it's real to me.
Now it's real, yeah.
But it's like the entire process, all of that is authentic. They've done their homework. That is how cocaine is made. And to see it with characters, it's like there's so much money.
You know what, though? I'm tempted to put it below Daredevil. And
wow, that's a testament to Daredevil.
Well, for me, and I know not everybody loves Daredevil, but for me, I put it there because to me, the brilliance of Daredevil is the blurring of the lines between the good and the evil.
Yeah.
And with Narcos, you can only blur the lines so much because they are real people. You can't make Pablo Escobar into the kingpin.
Yes.
Because he's a real person, and that would be over the line.
You have the constraint
so there's a limit.
Writing him. We know how it ends.
Right. And the DEA agents are not going to, put a blindfold on and go fighting. So there's something about Daredevil as a story that I find like, that is a little more gripping. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not just that Narcos is based on a real story that puts it in front of House of Cards or puts it in front of other shows.
But that certainly colors it.
When they're close enough. Narcos and House of Cards are very similar in telling tales of manipulation and human relations and politics. And so Narcos being based on a real story just gives it the edge. But whereas Daredevil is a story about the nature of good and evil and what makes us human, fictional helps them in that case for me.
Yeah, people in the chat are asking if it's just one season. It's one season now. It's already been renewed for another season. And
I mean, he has a son.
Well, first of all, I mean, Narcos, understand, it's not called Pablo Escobar, the series.
It's
called
a good point.
Narcos.
It's called
Narcos. The subject of the war on drugs is fascinating, especially as we see this chapter of humanity, this weird, Prohibition 2.0 kind of winding down to a close. We're watching, starting with marijuana legalized all over the United States.
Yeah. Can I ask you guys a quick question?
Sure.
When I talked about it on the show last week, I was hesitant because I thought it might have Orange is the New Black syndrome for the DEA characters. Do they get more interesting in episodes 3 and 4? Are they like more like they're not Piper Chapman?
Did you only watch the first episode?
I only saw the first 2.
Okay. The first episode is Pablo Escobar's the star of the show. It's his story, and you get ahead. You start to see hints of some of the DEA characters, but again, the DEA characters, or at least our main protagonist, is the least interesting, most milquetoast, white guy.
That's doing him a disservice. But you're over making your point.
At the beginning, and then
don't leave milquetoast out of it. He is the least interesting character in the first episode.
Correct,
for sure.
Correct, right? And yet They figure out a way to tell more of his story in his situation. They slowly bring you on board, and I have a feeling that he'll end up being our favorite character. It's a reverse Don Draper. Don Draper from the beginning was the most fascinating character, who's best at everything.
And there's a million threads that until you see the third or fourth episode, you don't start to pick up on. For instance, there's the dog that gets shot by Gacho. And Pablo is very upset.
Right.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
Why would you do that? And everyone's like, it's a dog.
Well, it was like, obviously
and,
couldn't,
and
figure out
then you have the cat killed
Yeah.
of the DEA agent. And there's a funny bit where they're like, he was DEA, we're going to avenge him.
Yeah.
And then there's the end of episode 4 where they're like, hey, I bought you a cat.
And he's just like,
I'm like, okay, there's a pet
screw
thread that's going to
you.
go somewhere here
Yeah,
still.
yeah.
Like, I'm curious where that ends up.
no, it's
Okay.
well,
And
plus
that's just
also,
and that's just one. There's 100 other examples of that.
They also do a great job of flashing backwards and forwards in time so that you're able to get more context of when our main character. And look, I don't even remember the main character's name. That's how not
Gringo.
the story
Is his name Gringo?
No,
That's what everybody calls
Might
him.
as well be. But yeah, no, I definitely, Bryce, encourage you to jump on and dive on.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to. That was one thing that stuck with me coming out of the first 2 episodes, and I'm glad to hear that it's going in a different direction as it goes forward.
All right, let's finish up with The Shield, episode 6 of season 7, and it is called Animal Control. And there's 2 main stories that go here. One is Wagenbach trying to figure out a guy who was caught naked with blood all over him, and really being convinced that there's more to him than just being a sleepwalker. He actually brings in Wims to help him because Billings is fighting his case. And then it turns out that he gets a confession out of the guy, and yet he's wrong because the blood matches a woman who's like, oh no, he tried to come up to me and I just waved him off. He was a freak, but he didn't ever do anything to me. And it makes Wagenbach doubt everything about himself and then have to go to Billings and say, I really need you to question me. I need a strong partner or else I don't know where my limits are, essentially.
Yeah.
So there's that story. And then the other story, obviously, is Vic Mackey figuring out, hey, I know how to end this series in episode 6. Let's forget that we have 6 more episodes to go. I'll have a Mexican-Armenian standoff. They'll kill Shane, which... very few things to criticize about The Shield, but if I had to criticize anything, it was a little bit of a sharp turnaround from Vic continually softening on Shane to suddenly in this episode going back to saying we should kill him.
Well, but this is also like he and
Gardaki's been consistent about it the whole time.
Right, exactly. But he finds himself kind of bound in by the blood oath that he swore to make things right with Shane, right? And in fact, he at this point he changes his language. He's like, "We're finally going to get him." He's instead says, "We're going to keep our promise."
It was a little bit abrupt because the episodes leading up to this have been, oh, I'm not okay with you, Shane, but I guess we have to work with you. And then suddenly this episode, because they showed us him saying that about promising to avenge Lem's death in the previously upon, it felt a little bit forced. But I also don't have any problem believing that Vic would do this. And he tries to set up Shane and yet has a crisis of confidence at the last minute to say, you know what? No, we can't do this. I was wrong. I shouldn't have done this, which then actually eased my concerns about the about face. I'm like, okay, the plan came together a little too elegantly and he couldn't turn it down. But when his emotions finally caught up with him, he realized it was the wrong thing to do. So he went back to being soft on Shane, but he's too late. However, Shane, through force of luck, escapes being killed. Seems like everything's okay. Vic, sigh of relief. Oh, glad that didn't, sorry about that,
of course,
Shane.
the twist.
We tried to get to you ahead of time. And then the twist at the end is Shane going home and saying, Vic Mackey tried to kill me today.
Yeah.
And all bets are off.
Yeah, and specifically, Shane did not know the behind-the-scenes machination. He only saw the fact that Vic was trying to kill him, which obviously will color his experiences moving forward. We're far enough along now in The Shield that I want to bring back something I said way early on. Mm-hmm. In so many ways, I think the character arc of Vic Mackey is the inverse of the character arc for Walter White on Breaking Bad. Walter White is somebody who comes up as very relatable and very likable, who you watch slowly descend into irredeemable evil. Vic Mackey is the opposite. The very first episode, you watch him cold-bloodedly murder a colleague in order to keep his position because the guy was a rat, basically. You think this guy is damned, he's irredeemable, there's no way I like it. And yet, as we get closer and closer to what we know is the end of the series, we see him continue to say things that make me, against my own will, like him and want to root for him. Things like, I've got to do this or I can sleep at night. We got to correct this wrong. No, I can't, even though Shane is a cold-blooded murderer. I've been a cold-blooded murderer, but he killed one of our own. But even I don't want to kill him now. And watching his family disintegrate and his options get shorter and shorter, where he's now up against the board, and it's kind of known, or it seems to be known that it's like, hey man, you're on your way out. That's the way everyone's acting around him. Do you find yourself rooting for Vic Mackey? Because what was funny is when I felt the very tickle of rooting for Vic Mackey, I was kind of ashamed of myself because I was like, no, this is a dude who murdered someone the first episode. I want to see him go to jail. And then another part of my brain was just like, but just not yet,
I don't. I don't see them as parallel characters myself. Vic Mackey started to me as a cartoon character. So him killing the guy in the first episode was like, okay, he's the bad cop. Like, it was so over the top that I'm like, okay, he's the bad guy. And then very quickly they start to humanize him. And to me, it's Vic Mackey has been consistent the whole way through. He has always talked about what's just and how he does the bad things in order to actually help justify the good things that come of them. That's why he was helping his prostitute friends in the early days. So to me, it's more of the perception of Vic softens as you are exposed to him longer. The way that the longer you get to know anyone, the harder it is for you to really hate them.
Well, the more human they become.
So old enemies, like old neighbors who are old enemies, will always bind together quicker against an external enemy, right? Because they know each other. And people who you hated in your freshman year in high school, you hug and say you're going to miss by your senior year, right? Because you spent all that time together. I feel like that's what happens with Vic Mackey is you just get used to him. And he hasn't changed a bit. He's been the same Vic Mackey the whole way through, but there's a part of you that's like, oh, well, you start to make excuses for him.
Like, oh, but he's going to be gone,
Vic.
And so on.
He is doing it for a good reason, even if it's the wrong thing, even if it's murdering, a guy in a shed because he thought he killed Lem, and he was wrong. I mean, he didn't mean bad by it. Vic lives by a code. You're used to the code now. And yeah, I totally agree with you that you find yourself rooting for Vic against your will.
So there's one element that we did not discuss, and that was the surprise appearance of Trayvon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're right. That's the third element, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because Trayvon shows up, and as soon as he walks into that, you're like, oh, this is not good.
And plus,
don't bring this guy back.
He's kind of doing...
Okay.
He's kind of doing his best Vic Mackey impression, and that he's just all smiles and everything's good. Oh, wacky. Oh, I got this thing, anything. And then he ends up just cornering Shane and essentially saying, I know exactly what happened.
Well, and you have a mental Mexican standoff going on, right?
Yeah.
You've got a good, bad, and the ugly situation, which is Shane pointing at Vic, you tried to kill me.
Yep.
Trayvon pointing at Shane, you tried to kill me.
Right.
And then Vic pointing at Shane, well, you killed Lem, and you tried to kill Trayvon, and you ordered me killed. I mean, it's more than a Mexican standoff.
Well,
it's like a Central American standoff.
Keep in mind,
and some of the Caribbean islands and a few other things. Like, there's so many cross accusations.
This is the fascinating aspect of Shane, because Shane doesn't have the discipline. He doesn't have the long-term ability. He doesn't have the, I'm going to say, heart of Vic Mackey to do the right thing, whether it's with shortcuts or not. Like, he's morally sloppy in a way that Vic is not. And now, just already everything's tightening around Shane. Shane's begging, for Vic to just turn over the box and get everything done. But now all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you have another pressure vector with Trayvon, and you have the fact that he now knows that Vic tried to kill him. And I feel like all of this is spring-loaded for, and by the way, I don't remember what the next episode is, but I feel this episode was all about putting Shane in such a small box that he will literally do anything moving forward.
Also, it's crazy how Trayvon ends up shooting all of them at the end.
What? Whoa! Spoiler alerts.
Hey, it's Spoilerin time. And that's it for Spoilerin time. Thanks, everybody, for supporting us at patreon.com/Cordkillers. We appreciate every single one of you and send you the tiniest, least creepy hug that makes you feel good about yourself.
Not me.
We'll see you next time.
My hug is big and creepy.
As long as it makes you feel good about yourself. No tongue.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.